everyone. Welcome to our construction forum this morning. So welcome to the importance of a talented and diverse workforce. Before I introduce any of our speakers, I would like to welcome Creston Reeves and thank Creston Reeves for sponsoring today's event. So I'd like to welcome Colin Laidlaw from Creston Reeves. He's the Director of VAT and Duty. He joined them in September 2018, having worked in a number of professional firms and also HM Customs and Excise, as it was known then. He's worked in VAT for over 30 years, and his role in Creston Reeves is a general advisory role, providing VAT and other indirect tax advice. So please welcome Colin, just to say a few words about Creston Reeves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Yes, we're very pleased to be sponsoring this event today. Just a background on Creston Reeves. We are a firm of accountants ranked number 23 in the UK. We are a multidisciplinary firm, so we do everything from audit, accounts, business advisory, corporate finance, regional network of associated advisors. We work with any number or size of business, in the southeast, and have a range of property and construction clients, both commercial and residential. As Anna said, I work in the VAT team, and I cover other indirect taxes such as aggregates levy, landfill tax, etc., which is very much a topic for discussion within the construction forum. VAT can be very complicated, as I'm sure some of you are aware. Knowing what rate to charge and whether it can be recovered is quite important, and the numbers can be particularly large. But a particular VAT issue for the construction industry coming up is something called the domestic reverse charge for construction. Hopefully our members will be aware of this as an issue. In essence, it means that anybody who currently charges VAT on services in the construction supply chain will need to review their policies and processes and possibly not charge VAT on supplies to their main contractors. Now, to me, having worked in VAT for 30 years and spent the last 30 years telling businesses to charge VAT wherever possible, this is a bit of a mindset change, especially for the construction industry, where no one wants to not charge VAT unless they're told not to. But it does mean that the contractors will no longer be charging VAT within the supply chain. This change takes effect from the 1st of March 2021 at the moment. It has been postponed twice, once due to lack of preparedness by the industry and once due to COVID. So who knows, it might not actually come into play on the 1st of March either. But it's only 5 months away, and there are a lot of other things that are happening at the moment. So definitely one to watch out for. And if you or your colleagues are not aware of the issue, you really should start looking at it and being prepared. So that's it for me. Happy to discuss that or any other accounting issue you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. So we will be circulating a delegate list after the event today. So if you want to reach out to Colin or you have any questions at the end of the forum, then please do raise your hand and ask any questions. So we have a few speakers today. The first one is Nick James from the CITB. So Nick is the Partnerships Director. He covers the whole of London and the south of England, and he leads a team of 30 supporting over 40,000 businesses in the construction sector. So the purpose of the team is to help construction businesses get the skilled workforce that they need.
Thank you again, Anna, and I feel very humble by comparison with Colin, who spent 35 years wrestling with VAT, which has always done my head in. So you look remarkably sane and healthy based on that, Colin. Well done. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to talk to you. As Anna said in the introduction, my name is Nick, and I am CITB's Partnerships Director covering London and the south of England. And as Anna described, I lead a team which is here to help businesses in the construction sector get the skilled workforce and support those employers to do that across the whole of London and the south of England. I've got 9 slides. Hopefully will take me about 10 to 15 minutes to rattle through, because I would like to leave time for questions and discussion. Managing people's expectations, there may be 1 or 2 things that I will need to take away, and if there's any questions about VAT, then I'll hand those over to Colin as well. What I'm going to say this morning, I'll give you an overview of some of the key trends affecting the construction sector at the current time, and without being a sort of preaching about what CITB is or isn't doing, I'll give you at least some indication of how we're working with government to address some of those key issues. I'll also then move on to an assessment of some of the areas that we need to focus on. Pardon me. Well, it's got a bit wobbly, isn't it? Areas to focus on, and what our approach as industry needs to be, with hopefully CITB's support, in terms of how we address those issues that we need to focus on. And dare I say it, every issue is an opportunity. And finally, rather than me just throwing a load of stuff out there, I give you an example of some practical help that you can access for free around the whole area of fairness, inclusion and respect, which is another sort of euphemism for diversity. So I'll start by just giving an overview, not a complete picture, but an overview of some of the trends and areas and approach that the construction industry is facing at this current moment, mainly in relation to skills and training, but it's often quite difficult to separate all of those kinds of issues out. So we all know where we've been over the last 6 months, and we all know where we are now. I think the critical point, if we can remember back to the pre-COVID days, what's happened since then, obviously in the context of lockdown and the suspension really of the economy and the furlough arrangements and so on that followed that, is that everyone has really been concentrating on the here and now. And in everything I say, as I said, I stress this isn't meant as a complete picture, which would take a whole day's presentation, which I'm not prepared to do. The variety and the spread of activity across the construction sector means that, you know, one size doesn't necessarily fit all. So what I'm describing may or may not apply to you. You may or may not recognize it in your particular area of work. But nonetheless, we expect a number of things to happen. I think generally, without being a sort of doom merchant here, there is an expectation of some form of economic recession. And I've seen references to U curves, V curves, W curves in terms of double dip recessions and so on. So whatever lies ahead is to be discovered soon, but we know that there's a risk that economic recovery and the recovery of the construction sector, where it could be slow and it could be uneven across the different parts of the sector. That will clearly have an impact on supply chains. It will clearly have an impact on the labour market if the activity isn't there. And there's a whole economic recession, not just in the construction sector, then we will expect that to impact on young and lower skilled workers. And we will also expect many experienced workers who perhaps are made redundant or don't have the job opportunities to look elsewhere. So the risk in all of that is, as you can see on the screen, I hope, that productivity margins fall. On the plus side, from a learning point of view, these kind of situations often create an increased demand for learning and skills, both from employers and from individuals. So again, in terms of scenarios, possible scenarios, there's a lot of recognition now that industry can and needs to work differently in the construction sector. We need to work much more closely. We need to be less competitive in terms of our competition with each other for skills and for labour, and particularly in the area of employment and skills, there are huge opportunities for collaboration. I think another thing to flag up at this point is, again, just to reiterate the point that this will affect different people in different ways. The housing sector, and again, forgive me, you'll have your own experiences, the housing sector, reasonably buoyant, although affected by lots of different new operating procedures. The infrastructure sector, in terms of the big infrastructure projects, has generally been able to continue working during lockdown. In fact, there are some examples, rewinding to the early days of lockdown, where there was no traffic on the roads, for example, where projects were delivered much more quickly. And I think the public sector works have also been able to continue as well. So I think where we see lots of risks is in the commercial, office, retail sector particularly. And again, impacts on lots of small businesses, although some have continued to work and have done very well. There are also lots who have had to slow down and aren't doing very well. And of course, all of this is without mentioning the B word. So that, again, more unknowns in terms of exactly how that will play out in practice. We know some of the rules and we have expectations about some of the impacts of Brexit on European migration and recruitment, but nevertheless, that's still to play out in real terms. So what that leads us to, in terms of some areas that we should focus on, both the CIT, but as government more widely and as industry as a whole, we absolutely need to continue the work that we are all doing, I'm sure, in our different ways, and CITB is doing a lot around helping young people to understand the whole breadth of construction opportunities. If we are recruiting from a diverse workforce and we are recruiting from young people, there are lots and lots of prejudices and myths that we need to nail, not least in terms of the diversity issues, clearly, but also in terms of construction typically being a muddy, dirty, nasty place to work, which clearly isn't true in terms of the breadth, the type of opportunities that now exist in the industry. We need to make it easy to join the industry. So rather than putting barriers in people's way, let's provide as much work experience opportunities, let's provide as many apprenticeships as we can for as many people as we can. We need to give clear standards and competence. There's a lot of concerns in industry around the ability of people to operate on site, for example, and lots of different approaches to that. So one of the things that CITB is going to do over the next few years is rationalize that down and standardize it as much as possible so that when employers do recruit, they can have confidence in the competence of the people that they are recruiting. A lot going on around modernisation of the industry, digital skills, modern methods of construction, decarbonisation. All of these are sort of hot topics in terms of, if we were to paint a picture of what we want industry to look like in 5 to 10 years' time, then these would be at the front of how employers are operating. And consequently, they will need to be at the front of the skills that are being provided. So again, a shift from, in general terms, a shift from conventional trades towards much more digital, automated methods of work and more modern methods of construction, which reflects the need to reduce our carbon footprint. And all of that impacts on the training that's delivered. I think one of the takeaways I would give you is that one of the things we've seen over the last 6 months is there's a huge increase in interest and an appetite amongst employers and individuals to do online learning. So whereas in the past we might have expected 20 people to all convene in a hotel room and drink bad coffee and have a day's training, I think there's a much more acceptance amongst industry, individual employers and our employees that training can be delivered in online, digital ways. So there are some of the issues that we face and some of the impacts that we see in the future in terms of how training is delivered and what training may or may not be needed. I think there's some critical points to highlight in terms of that's the what we do, how should we approach this? And I think with reference to the next speaker, I'm sure that we'll hear a lot about how local engagement can work successfully. We're very conscious that one size doesn't fit all. We've got something like 2.7 million people working in the construction industry currently. So, the idea that one thing will be suitable for all 2.7 million people is clearly not sustainable. So it's about local engagement and about flexibility and agility in terms of how we provide information, how we provide training and support. I think it's worth flagging that apprenticeships is still the sort of #1 show in town, so to speak. Lots going on, as I'm sure you may be aware, around apprenticeship levy and the value of apprenticeships to employers. But certainly, I think, politically speaking and nationally speaking, all governments are strongly committed to apprenticeships, both in terms of quantity and quality. From a CITB point of view, we're very focused on apprenticeships, and for those of you that are registered with us, we can provide grants, support, information, hand-holding, both for employers and the apprentices. Because it can be a bit of a minefield, I'll hold my hands up there, but it's, we're here to help in that regard. We've also, as CITB, taken a deliberate decision to sort of focus much more clearly on direct funding for employers. So again, we offer a range of grants for our registered employers, but also particularly focused on small businesses. And so if you have training needs and the thing that's getting in the way of you adopting those training opportunities is just the cash or the cash flow, then let us know and we'll see how we can help. I think there's a whole range of bullets on the screen there around how we could work with the training sector. Sort of hesitating, but the broad principle here is, that none of this is necessarily new. Some of you will be very familiar with the education sector, further education sector, higher education sector, so on and so forth. The real sort of missed opportunity here, I think, is that there's a huge amount of construction training going on in FE colleges. So this is generally school leavers, also adults, who do NVQs and other related courses in construction. The missed opportunity here is that, and this isn't a criticism of anyone or anything, only about 25% of those learners who do construction courses in further education actually take up jobs in the construction sector. So there's a lot of wastage there. And again, no comment on, that's not intended as a comment on anything other than there's a lot of wastage. It can't be good use of all of our tax revenue and all of our resources and all of our time and energy for 75% of something not to work. So that's about quality, that's about accessibility. It brings us back to the way in which training is delivered through remote learning and remote services, and it brings us back to the diversity issue. If we are to have a successful industry, the industry that we all work in, then we absolutely need to be open and accessible to people from all sorts of backgrounds, dare I say it, including white, middle-aged blokes like myself. So, I think diversity means many things to many people, and it shouldn't be just a sort of, again, a one-size-fits-all. So rather than me preaching to you about diversity, and believe me, I can do that on another day, I thought I'd just share with you some real and practical help. So please bear in mind, and I repeat this point, that this isn't about me preaching to you about diversity. There are some horror stories and terrible practices that continue in our industry, some of which are really explicit, some of which are completely accidental. But I think, I would hope that we're all in general terms signed up to the principles of recruiting and supporting from as diverse a workforce as we possibly can. That not only makes us more productive, but it also helps us in terms of the recruitment and the skills that we need. So for the last few years, CITB has worked with C.I.C, the Civil Engineering Contractors Association, and the Supply Chain School, which is an industry-led partnership, which is mainly focused around online learning. And one of the things we've been doing with C.I.C and the Supply Chain School is developing a toolkit for small businesses. Because again, my concern here is, I can rock up and highlight these as issues to you, but much more helpful, I think, if I give you a way forward and some tools to use. This is freely accessible, and I'll show you how. I'll give you the contacts to use at the end of this presentation. The toolkit is about a number of things, which I'll show you in a minute in terms of the schedules and the types of support that's available. Recruiting and training ambassadors. So again, one of our approaches here is, rather than CITB or anyone else doing well-intentioned presentations like this, much better to have people from within your own businesses or from within the wider industry who can give you real demonstrations and a real experience of how this is operated in their particular company and the benefits that they've derived from that. So there are, I think there's about 1,400 ambassadors that have been trained by the supply chain school across the UK. And they can provide you with conversation, with information, and with support in terms of how you introduce fairness, inclusion, and respect into your own businesses. There's a lot of training materials that are available, what we call short duration courses. So, sort of an hour to half a day type thing on the different aspects of fairness, inclusion, respect. Video case studies from industry, again, much better for you to hear from practitioners. An e-learning offer, half-day virtual conferences, webinar type things, and then extensive marketing campaign as well. And here's a bit of an indication of the areas that are covered. I know it's a little bit small in its typeface here, so forgive me for that, please. But you can see from, without going into it in great detail, some of the e-learning materials that you can access. Very much focused on supporting businesses to introduce and operate in fair and inclusive ways, bearing in mind that this means many different things to many different people. In the middle block there, you'll see some of the industry sponsors, which some of whom you'll recognise, some of whom you may work with as suppliers. No apologies here in the sense that this has been driven by the larger contractors, because obviously they got the resources to spend time and energy putting things like this together. But the absolutely, please be assured that the audience is absolutely small businesses. And I hope that's helpful to you in that sense. And then finally, in terms of the actual program itself, give you an idea of some of the topics. Again, this is just an example. There's a lot more if you are able to go onto the website. There's a lot more material that you can see online. But again, just in terms of getting your heads around, our heads around what this might mean in practice, you'll see some of the subject titles. Some of this is around mental health. Some of this is around culture. Some of this is around business productivity. What differences do employers see as a result of having a diverse and inclusive workforce, but also having a diverse and inclusive approach to their own businesses? And lots of practical help. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Cut to the chase, Nick. Lots of practical help, lots of learning materials that are available for you to use, and so that you can both understand fairness, inclusion, and respect, and introduce it into your own workplaces, and therefore hopefully achieving the diverse workforce that industry needs and that you as employers would find beneficial. So thank you for listening. What I've got there is some hopefully helpful contact. So the Supply Chain School, I've primed Sarah at the Supply Chain School. It's actually also Antoinette at the Supply Chain School, but I found it easier to spell Sarah there in the email address. So please, she is, Sarah and Antoinette are both ready, willing and able to help and respond to any queries you might have. So please do feel free to email them directly in terms of how you can benefit from the programme, or just go directly onto the website. My contact details are there if you would like any further information or follow up. Also just to flag that our local advisor, one of the 30 that Anna mentioned at the top of the shop, is Heidi Green, and part of my team. And Heidi covers the Sussex area and is on hand to provide advice and support. Heidi's currently on furlough. We'll be back at on the 1st of November. So in Heidi's absence, if there's anything you want practically in day-to-day terms, then please do get in touch directly with myself. I'm starting to waffle there, Anna, but I hope that was what you needed. I'll stop there. I hope that was what you needed and is helpful. Very happy to open it up to discussion and any comments or feedback.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick. Now I'd like to open it up to the audience to see if they have any questions. So you can raise your hand. I think Ian had a question.
Thanks, Anna. So Nick, I work for a company. We install audio-visual equipment. That's what we do. So right now, our industry is quite busy, to be truthful, because a lot of businesses are going for that. But our challenge is bringing people in we would love to get more women involved in our industry, to be truthful, but I'm sure that's true for all of the agencies, all of the industries that are here. But our big challenge, we're a specialist area, and the only training that's available for people comes from things like electrical installation, building installation, and we've gone to a number of number of colleges and said, look, could you do a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And they say, we'd love to, but the government won't let us. And I just wonder if there's anything you can do that would help us to understand, and perhaps help the whole of the commerce to understand what we could do to change the way the government thinks about training.
That's a very good description. I think the apprenticeship system works very well when it's got large numbers going through the system. So large numbers of bricklayers, ground workers, whoever it may be. It doesn't work so well when there are very specialist areas, including the description that you've given there. The typical approach will be for a trade body, and I don't know if you, forgive me, I don't know if you have a trade association or a federation that you are a member of, that would bring a number of employers like yourselves together and say, here's our common need. We now want to put a training standard together that would fit with an apprenticeship standard. So my suggestion to you would be to start with a trade body or a membership association of some kind, and just ask them and try and work with them to pull their members together to work in this way. It's what the government wants, rightly or wrongly, is for a number of employers to come together to design industry-led apprenticeships. So rather than just having one or two employers saying, I need this, they're looking for a minimum of sort of 10. So once you've got 10, and there's a bit of flexibility around that, but once you've got a decent number of employers who have that common need, then the system, if you like, will see that there's viability in putting something together. And with help from the Institute for Apprenticeships and others, you should then be able to design an apprenticeship program that works for you and your colleagues working in your part of the sector.
Can I just come in on that? So I sit on various skills groups across the whole of Sussex, and so that's talking after they've left college, the apprenticeship route, or even degree apprenticeships, whichever route that may be. But it was interesting that you said 25% that have been studying construction it's only 25% that actually go into jobs. So the other 75% have been studying at college and they don't go into the industry. So my question has always been, is the curriculum fit for purpose anymore? Because the curriculum in schools has not been changed. And we're talking about digitising and automating stuff, but digital is not part of the curriculum either. You have your sciences and you have your maths and your English. So when you put all that together, it really does make you question whether the curriculum is fit for purpose and whether it should be adjusted and adapted for the current young people and the businesses that exist.
I absolutely agree. I think that's right. I think the issue here is, the education system has been through lots of changes, and is a, dare I say it, a sort of political football, isn't it, in the terms of what people ask it to do, require it to do, mandate it to do. So I think the compulsory education system has a lot of pressures on it and has a lot of requirements, which may or may not reflect the modern world of work. I suppose what countless governments over time have tried to do is bring in various programs, various vocational education programs, as they're often called, that make education more work-related. And again, some of those have been sector-based. They've had mixed success and they come and go. The most recent one now is something called T-levels. where again, schools and colleges are being encouraged to diversify and provide much more sort of work experience based programs in occupational areas. And there are 2 schedules come in that relate to the construction sector. So there's one for site-based work, and there's one for planning, design, operations, office-based work. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Anna, in a sort of general way. I think from a construction-specific perspective, there are initiatives such as T-levels that try and focus on that. Clearly, we as an industry body want to maximise the benefits that industry gains from programmes such as T-levels, but it's very difficult because, dare I say it, and I know it's being recorded, but they do come and go, and so you get some commitment and some capacity in place, and then someone comes along and changes it again. So I think one part of the issue that you were referring to at the beginning there is that the education sector is constantly awash with different initiatives that do or don't happen here and now, and do or don't make an impact.
Thank you, Nick. Just want to see if anybody else has any questions at all for Nick. Oh, Karen, I can see you raising your hand. Shall I unmute you just a minute? There you go, Karen.
Okay, thanks very much. Morning, Nick. Hi, we run a micro business, so there's only 3 of us employed, but we use a lot of subcontractors. We would like to take an apprentice on. One massive stumbling block that we always have is trying to get hold of the right telephone number to actually organise CSCS cards, whether it be a new one, which we've had recently. We had to put it on hold because I virtually was having a nervous breakdown trying to get beyond the HS&E card, which was quite straightforward. It just seems to be an absolute minefield out there, knowing which card you're supposed to have. We are we call ourselves ecological contractors, so we deal with ecologists in construction. So our main clients are ecologists, but we work for the likes of Taylor Wimpey, etc. There's sort of like 2 parts to this. For us, we need a CSCS card and a Rolo, because we sort of fall into 2 areas, and they're more or less exactly the same cards, what we have to do. But as I say, just going back to the, it was just a debacle trying to get last year a CSCS card renewed. And I just kept going round and round in circles because I believe, I don't know, are you the same as Pearson VUE? I mean, it was
No, that's right. Pearson VUE run the test centres. And
run the what, sorry?
The test centres.
Yes, well, it was a nightmare because they've sold some of it off to some American company.
Yeah.
And I just had to give up in the end.
The best thing I can do, Karen, and is if you can send me your details, we'll follow it up directly with yourself and sort it.
Oh, great. That would be so useful because, as I say, we've actually also been approached by a chap who is retraining at Plumpton College, and we would like to take him on. He just needs a placement, but the thought of actually going through that, not saying just for a bit of a placement, I just can't cope with it. So, okay.
If you are you comfortable just to email me?
Yes.
Directly, and we'll follow it up. Yeah, and if you don't hear from me, get Anna to chase me as well.
Yeah, you can put your email address, Karen, directly to Nick in the chat.
Yeah.
But we will circulate the delegate details afterwards. Thank you. I'm going to leave any further questions until the end now, so we can move on to our next speaker. So today we're joined by Paul Scrivens, who's the Commercial Director from LoveLocaljobs. He built his career in classified digital and recruitment media and had an increasing desire to do something more meaningful. So after he attended one of LoveLocaljobs' Be the Change launch conferences, he came away being inspired, and so he joined the team. And so the company is driven by a desire to deliver even more services and programs for local communities to be exemplar employers, all with the intention of helping to drive social mobility and raise local career aspirations. So please welcome Paul.
Oh, yeah, morning. Thanks very much for having me. But yeah, as Anna said, I'm the commercial director at LoveLocaljobs.com and the LoveLocaljobs Foundation. Just to set the scene a little bit, for those of you who don't know anything about LoveLocaljobs.com, we're an award-winning, locally specific jobs board. We were launched in 2010 originally as BrightonandHoveJobs.com. And you can see the name on the front of the Brighton and Hove Albion shirt, which we were very lucky to get at the last minute, but that's perhaps a story over a drink when we're allowed to be able to reconvene again. But the job board really grew from strength to strength. Brighton and Hove Jobs became Gatwick Diamond Jobs, 1066 Jobs, Coastal West Sussex Jobs. In 2015, we pulled that into a regional super site. You know, nothing to the billions and trillions that somebody like, you know, Indeed or Google would talk about, but certainly on a local level, you know, over the last 12 months, we've had 100,000 users, you know, look at like 500,000 jobs, which, you know, specific to Sussex, you know, is a really focused and engaged audience. And we've always tried to pride ourselves on being more than just a job board, and I've included some screenshots, you know, from events and forums and work that we've done to help nurture the next generation, which is something that's very close to our heart as well. So that leads me on to the foundation, as Anna alluded to. You know, the sense of wanting to be part of something more meaningful was certainly my pathway to joining the business in 2017. So in 2018, we launched the LoveLocaljobs Foundation. We'd been doing projects with young people since 2015, but this was a way to formalise it. And I'll talk about it in a little bit more context for the topic later in the presentation. But, you know, in its essence is about inspiring young people and engaging that sort of typically disparate world of education and business, and using influential and positive people, you know, from the local community to help make that meaningful and have impact. And we're really fortunate to work with some of the biggest, you know, and leading employers across Sussex. And, you know, it would be great to add a few construction brands to that in the months and years that follow. So my title is how to help you guys attract and retain the best in local talent, which, you know, as our smoking jacket friend here says, that's really easy, right? That's a simple task. Well, obviously it's not. That's an absolute void, which we could spend a month on webinars talking about various techniques discussing. So the obvious places that I could start are things like, you know, how to make the most of national job boards, how to make the most of niche job boards. I've included a few from your sector there, which you may or may not be aware of. Regional job boards like ourselves. Similarly, we could talk about recruitment and search agencies, again, on a national, niche or regional level. We could talk about how to make the most of social media to engage with your talent pipeline. We could talk about Twitter, we could talk about review sites, the rise of Instagram, Google reviews, you know, and a whole range of other digital marketing techniques. But in thinking about, you know, what would be, I think, more interesting to talk about today, you know, a lot of that stuff, I guess, is more the short-term reactive, you know, recruitment requirements that you'll all be kind of wading through in some shape or form. And I'm more than happy to help with any of that. You know, if anybody wants to contact me after the event, you know, some of that we can obviously help with directly. If we can't help with it directly, then I'll be happy to point in the direction of people within our network who we know can. But I thought it'd be interesting and perhaps more on point for the theme today, just to talk about, you know, the bigger picture really, and my understanding of some of the challenges within your industry, and are, you know, some of the things that we've spoken about already: the impact of migration, an aging workforce, the disconnect with the next generation, economic uncertainty, increasing workloads despite that. And then a point that I've added on the bottom, because, you know, I think it's going to be increasingly important, the importance of localism going forward, given everything that's happened around COVID. So I thought it would be most interesting just to share some insights and context that we have from the work that we do with the foundation, you know, where basically we try and leverage the positivity and influence of big local employers to try and inspire and help raise aspirations for local young people, and try and provide a platform for young people to be the best version of themselves that they can possibly be. So as I mentioned, we formally launched the foundation in 2018, and the core of what we do is within the local next generation, we try and build foundations around core values like happiness, confidence, hope, employability, and relationships. So all of the kind of building blocks that will stand them in good stead in life, really, but are obviously kind of crucial to building, you know, a positive and fulfilling career. And the ways that we go about doing that are by trying to create, you know, opportunities for young people to have inspiring experiences, you know, at venues and in scenarios that they might not otherwise get the opportunity to do. We try and connect them with positive role models, you know, and that might be, you know, local celebrities off the radio. It might be big ticket names like Harry Redknapp. But most importantly, and most often, that positive role model is just people like you and I, you know, people from business, from the world of work, that have got their own story to tell, have tread their own path. You know, we've all overcome our own share of challenges and adversity, you know, and a lot of which young people can relate to. You know, we might have been bullied at school, we might have had a learning disability, we might have had issues at home, you know, and I think hearing from people that have been through that and come out the other side and have an interesting and exciting job that is successful and has provided a really positive life for them, you know, you can't underestimate the impact that has on a young person who, you know, might not have that glass half full person in their periphery, you know, and could be surrounded by glass half empty people. So, you know, it's an important angel on the shoulder and a real kind of key part of what we do. Also, in the programs that we deliver, you know, and are similar to those kind of core values I was talking about, you know, we're constantly trying to reinforce those soft skills and those elements of employability character, you know, like resilience and determination and teamwork. Everything that we've had feedback from our employers seems to be lacking more and more from the next generation of workforce that comes through, which obviously causes problems because it makes it harder to retain people and develop people and get any momentum within your recruitment processes on a large scale where you're being able to move forward and meet the quota of demand within your industries. Understanding employment, you know, you'd be amazed the number of kids that just have no idea the opportunities that are on their doorstep, and have no idea, you know, when you take an employer, the range of different opportunities within that employer that might exist to them. So really sort of putting that on the map for them and helping them understand, you know, what they're doing now at school, you know, and in life, and the decisions they make and the choices they make, and, you know, the people they decide to be friends with and the way they choose to behave, you know, and not just how they perform in school, you know, how that all kind of connects into, you know, what their career and their pathway in employment might look like. All I guess, you know, engineered to give them a greater sense of who they are, and belief in the opportunities that are there for them, and the opportunities and the potential they have to go out and get them. So this is out of date, actually, but in putting the presentation together, it was the most professional slide I had for it. But you get the gist. We've worked with hundreds of businesses, hundreds of business guides, thousands of students. And as we all know, you know, the proof is in the pudding with these things. We track everything at the beginning, middle, and end of the programs that we do. And whether it's a business guide or a student, you know, the amount of positivity and support for what people get out of participating in it is amazing, you know, and I think that's one of the things that motivates us to strive to keep doing more. So, you know, just picking out what the students said, you know, that's that's big statements. It brought her out of her shell, you know, boosted her confidence. She made a speech at the end. I mean, some of these kids, they stand in an event with 200 people. I have to go up at the beginning and talk for like a couple of minutes just to say thank you to the sponsors and thank you to the venue and introduce what's happening, you know. And I'm 40 and, you know, gets the heart bumping and the gut churning, you know, and these kids that can't look you in the eye at the beginning of the program and, you know, won't really shake your hand, you know, will get up on stage with a microphone in their hand, you know, and talk to the whole room about what they've taken away and what they'll be do differently. And I think that's an amazing experience for them to have and something that they'll take with them throughout life. So yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea. And again, you know, this is from our more recent program that we've been doing with Jack the Lad off the radio. You know, I can't wait to see what my future holds, what I can achieve in life. You know, I have a positive attitude and an aspiration for aiming high. Thank you. You know, hopefully, you know, I could literally fill a presentation with quotes like this, but hopefully that gives you a flavour of what it means to the kids that take part in it. But I guess spinning it back round to you guys as employers, you know, why am I talking about this? You know, what does it mean to you? Well, when we're talking about attraction and retention, this is such an important piece now going forward, you know, particularly as I said at the beginning, when you think about the bigger picture, you know, if you want to build a larger and more diverse future talent pipeline, then making more young people aware of your industry, and particularly on a local level, your business as an employer, you know, and why you're a good place to work and build a career, you know, is a huge opportunity. But also, you know, by being involved in projects like this, and, you know, obviously I'm not saying we're the only thing like this. There's a range of community interest projects that will, you know, have a similar CSR purpose, but being involved in something like that is getting really, really important. You know, I think candidates and, you know, people looking for jobs and people in jobs, you know, they're getting more tuned into working for a company that has a set of values that they subscribe to and a culture that they want to be part of. So if you want to be attracting the top talent in your industry for your business, you need to be demonstrating that you care about these issues. And this one in particular at the moment seems to be one that is gathering momentum given the impact COVID's had on young people. Also, it's, you know, the projects that we do are without doubt, you know, a great opportunity to build stronger relationships with schools and colleges, because it's their students that are taking part in the program, which obviously creates knock-on opportunities, you know, to have a closer relationship for students feeding through those schools and colleges into, you know, apprenticeships, work experiences and other opportunities that will lead to them being fully employed. And then enhancing your reputation within your community, you know, both as an employer brand and a commercial brand. You know, being involved in stuff like this is a great way to demonstrate, you know, that you're an employer that cares about the community that it operates in, and is prepared to, you know, invest its time and resources into making that community even better going forward. And then from a retention perspective, as you'd have seen from some of the stats on there, you know, the business guides that take part in this, you know, it really does mean a huge amount to them to be part in it. So, you know, to be able to demonstrate that through your whole organization and create that culture, whether it's people that have been involved in the programs or not, it seems to be something that's, you know, increasingly well received. And similar to attracting top talent, you know, seeing that your employer cares about this kind of stuff will be a reason that people will feel good about working for you and will feel good about continuing to work for you and feel more positive that you know, what they put their time and effort and blood, sweat and tears into is going into a business that, you know, is worthwhile and, you know, has a positive future in society. And then the actual people that take part in it, you know, it develops skills that are, you know, way out of their comfort zone. You know, it puts them into a situation that, you know, it's difficult to get in any sort of classroom training style environment, because there's no greater challenge than working and mentoring young people, and it's proven to be incredibly motivational. And then, you know, finally, as I mentioned, you know, you're building that work readiness, you know, and that resilience of your future workforce by giving them the opportunities, the students, to take part in programs like this. And that was really the reason that we got into it in the first place, because employers were increasingly finding it was difficult to have young people join their business and be work ready. So reinforcing those soft skills and employability character will ultimately pay dividends when those people come to work for you, which is more likely if they've been involved in a program that you've been engaged in. So again, I won't read stats out to you guys, but you can see that the overall positivity that comes back from the business people that take part in the programs that we have is really, really positive. And here's a quote from someone from Legal and General, again, just to try and bring that to life a bit. It's an honour and a privilege to be part of it. I felt like a changed person. I feel I can be a better mother and a stronger person, more confident to make positive changes, both personally and professionally. And I think a really interesting thing about the stuff we do that I've certainly noticed since I've been part of it is everybody gets something from each other, in the same ways that the adults are mentoring the young people. In a way, the young people are mentoring the adults. So there's this really beautiful sort of 360 holistic kind of benefit where everybody walks away from it feeling better about who they are, what they've achieved, what they can still achieve, the opportunities that the world offers to them, which I think is important for everybody. So, in terms of you guys, how can you support that? I think the most topical issue at the moment is certainly the impact of COVID. There's a couple of stats there from Young Minds relating to mental health, which are really just a drop in the ocean and other stuff that you will have seen. And also I've included a screenshot from the Aldridge Foundation, who, if you don't know, operate academies all over the country, but 2 in Brighton that we work with, a backer and packer. And I think that just, that's definitely common of the schools that we deal with, who are really crying out for help and support for their students. And we touched on this earlier. Interestingly, a lot of the schools that we work with, they recognise that the curriculum doesn't give students everything they need, but they're caught between a rock and a hard place because of the way that they're governed and graded. So they have to have that academic focus. But they all understand the need to give students an experience that is more tied to employment and the workplace, and local employers and the opportunities that are out there for them. They just don't have the capacity to do it themselves in the current way that schools are managed and governed. So in terms of us, this is our new campaign that some of you may have seen, and you'll be seeing more of it. I'm on the radio on Friday and ITV next week. We're really going to be having a big push over the next few weeks to get as many businesses involved as we can. And this really is businesses big and small, where we're on a mission to try and get in front of as many secondary school students as we can this academic year, whether that's through inspirational speakers, through sharing digital content, virtual mentoring, because we can't do face-to-face at the moment, insights into workplaces, digital badging to give accreditation to the skills. We want to give as many local young people a positive and inspiring experience that's linked to the world of work and local employers as we possibly can. And our model has always been a sustainable one. We don't rely on government funding. We rely on the businesses that have supported us. And that works because there's an obvious return on investment for those businesses, for the people that already work for them, for the people that will work for them in the future, and for the people that they're trying to attract now. There's never been a more pressing time to do it, given everything that's happened. So that's our kind of call to arms, really. And I'd love to discuss that in more detail with anybody that's on the call today, but I suspect I've waffled on long enough. So there's my contact details. I put my mobile because some days I'm in the office, some days I'm working from home, as such is life at the moment. If anybody, whether you come in from a business that's big or small, it really doesn't matter. If this kind of stuff sounds of interest and sounds like something that you'd like to be part of and to help support for this academic year and hopefully beyond, please do get in touch, because I'd love to talk in a little bit more detail, and find how it could be, made increasingly relevant to your businesses. I think a real advantage we're seeing, particularly with having to be more agile, be more digital in our delivery, is that brings the opportunity, A, to get in front of a much bigger audience of students, which is fantastic, and B, be much more flexible to the needs of each individual business, because we're not trying to have one large event that fits the requirements of 6 to 10 employers. We can be much more bespoke in bite-sized deliveries, which is exciting. So yeah, hopefully that's a help, and I'll come out of my presentation so we can do the questions if we've got time. Did I
Thank
keep
you.
the time limit, Anna?
No, that's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. We can probably take a couple of questions now, and then we can leave further questions to the end. But I just wanted to add as well, because I've been along to one of the Be the Change programs, and it was so inspirational seeing these young people. But like Paul said, went away not knowing where to look, because I was literally in tears, but I wasn't the only one. Everybody else, all the business people in there were, in tears, because it was so inspirational seeing how these young people had developed and what they'd been through. And also I've met Jack the lad. He is truly an inspiration, and it is looking for individuals that can go along, inspire young people. They may have challenging backgrounds, they may have challenges that, with school friends or with, wherever that may be. It is inspiring them and being positive role models for them. But at the same time, them understanding what work opportunities are literally on their doorstep, because so many young people don't know what's here. So I'll open that up to questions and see if anyone wants to raise their hand or ask. Just unmute yourself, please, and then ask Paul.
Can I just chuck something else in as well that I forgot to say? A bit of homework for everybody. I watched a program on Netflix last night called The Social Dilemma. I don't know if anybody's seen it yet, but it is basically a pretty depressing take on the kind of grip that the big media companies like Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter have on society, and the impact that the data that they hold on us all has and can have. And they talk specifically on the impact of young people, and it is terrifying. I've got an 8-year-old daughter and a 7-month-old son. And when I think about the challenges that they will grow up with by comparison to what I grew up with, it terrifies me. So, for a lot of these young people, the mountain that they have to climb is so much higher than it's ever been before. And it's really, really important that we give them the support. But I'd recommend watching this program. It's fascinating. Like it'll scare you to death, but it is fascinating and very linked into a lot of the stuff that we do.
Thank you, Paul. You'll have to share the name of that on the chat. So
yeah, will do.
Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to ask Paul? Yeah, we'll bring it to Q&A again for all of our speakers towards the end. But please do find out more and get involved with the programme, because it is an inspirational way of helping young people. And if anything, they're going to need more help and support now than ever. Also, with regards to young people, there were some statistics that I was reading in terms of those that were on furlough, and over 50% just in the South East area, which covers East Sussex. I haven't had the statistics from Coast to Capital for the West Sussex area, but over 50% of those were young people aged 16 to 24. All the other 50% were from 25 right up to 65. So it does actually, a lot of businesses are making those decisions to make people redundant, to restructure, and it does make young people more vulnerable. At the same time, I know that there's also issues regarding the ageing workforce, migration, which Paul alluded to as well earlier. So what I'd like to do is now just provide an update on the Kickstart scheme. The government launched the Kickstart scheme which is a £2 billion fund, which was designed to create high quality job placements. Now, this is open to every business. You don't have to be a member of the chamber. We are acting as an intermediary, because this scheme, when it was launched, they said that businesses that have 30 job placements, you can apply directly. So that would probably be the larger companies that may want to offer 30 job placements in their business. But for the smaller businesses, they've got they're not able to apply directly. So if you want to offer a job placement to one person, 2 or 3 or half a dozen. So the government were looking for gateway providers or intermediaries. So Sussex Chamber is acting as an intermediary which means that we can gather a pool of 30 placements and then submit the applications to government. Now, what these job placements require is that you offer a placement for 6 months. It's for somebody aged 16 to 24, and they're on universal credit. So it's about to start next month, and it will be open until December 21, which means that the last job placement you can take on in December 2021 will then go through till June 2022. So we're acting as an intermediary. As I mentioned, you don't need to be a member of the chamber. The funding from government will cover the 6 months salary, the national minimum wage salary for 25 hours a week, and the national insurance contributions and pension. If you wish to pay more than the national minimum wage, that will be something that you will need to cover. And also, if you want to offer more than 25 hours a week, that is something you will need to cover, as the government will pay the equivalent of 25 hours at national minimum wage. It works out to about £6,500 for the entire 6 months. There's also £1,500 for support, which will be for the setup costs. So if you need to buy a uniform, any equipment for that young person, but more importantly, it's towards their training and development. So if you needed to go to a training provider to help them with Excel or CV skills, or with soft skills, customer service, that £1,500 is also used towards their training and development. You will receive the £1,500 at the beginning once their job placement has been confirmed, but the salary payments are paid in arrears. So it's making sure that you can actually cash flow that, and then it is paid to you in arrears, either in 2 instalments or 3. We're just waiting for clarification from the Department for Work and Pensions. These job placements must not replace existing or planned vacancies that you may have, for example, if you're restructuring or making other people redundant. And it must be, as I said, minimum of 25 hours. And there must not be a requirement for you to ensure that the young person undertakes extensive training before they begin. That will be frowned upon. It needs to be that you're providing that training during the job placement. So in terms of the training, the skills development side, we are working with various colleges throughout the whole of Sussex, various training providers, so that you have a pool of resources that you can go to use that funding to help develop the skills of that young person, whether it's setting career goals, whether it's attendance, timekeeping, teamwork, whatever those skills are that young person needs. That's the funding is there to support you. So the salary payments are paid to you in arrears, as I mentioned. The £1,500 is paid to you at the beginning to help you onboard that young person. And we as an intermediary receive £300, which is a completely separate pot directly from government, because some people have asked me, is that £300 from the £1,500? It's not, it's completely separate. So we handle all of the admin, the administration and everything, and upload all of the information onto the government portal. So as I said, in terms of the ongoing support, it's making sure that after the 6 months, what would be fantastic is if you can provide that young person with a future career within your company. If not, this is where we're working with the training providers, with FE, with colleges. Then maybe there's an apprenticeship route they can go down, or they can go into further education or other training. But it's providing those options for that young person so that you can try and help them as much as possible for the 6 months, if not longer. And all the information is on our website under Young Chamber and Kickstart. There is a form that you need to download. It asks for your company details, your company registration number, because government need to carry out some checks, how many job placements, the job titles, and you need to provide a job description as well of what that young person would be required to do. And then also you'll be required to put on the form how they will be supported in terms of their development, their skills, their ongoing support. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I really wanted to open it up, whether you've got any questions now for our sponsor, Creston Reeves, for Nick at the CITB, for Paul at LoveLocaljobs and LoveLocaljobs Foundation, or for myself about the Kickstart scheme. So I'd like to open it up now to see if anyone has anything that they'd like to ask any of us. Yes, Karen.
Hi, sorry, me again. Colin, could I just ask a question of Colin?
Certainly.
You said about the change in the VAT, which I was aware of. Does that also apply to our suppliers? So we're like contractors that go on site, and we have to have materials for the work that we do. So the people that we're buying our sort of fencing materials from, do they charge VAT, or does it stop with us?
So the new rules only apply to suppliers of construction services, not suppliers of goods or materials.
So direct. Okay, so it would just be us not charging VAT, but we would still have to pay VAT on the materials that we use on that site.
Yes, and obviously depending on what you're doing, you will still be able to recover that VAT.
Yes.
The measures are an anti-fraud measure to prevent VAT from escaping the supply chain. And typically that doesn't happen with suppliers of materials. It happens with suppliers of services.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Karen. Has anybody like to ask any questions to any of our speakers? Oh, is that Victoria? Yep.
Yes, Victoria Halsham Roadways. Hello, everyone. Where did you say we can find more information about this Kickstart scheme? I'm on a Sussex Chamber of Commerce website, cannot find anything.
It's on the front page, but it's also under Young Chamber and then Kickstart. I will send a link round to everybody. And
thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I have also a question to CITB, please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we have a bit of backlog of cards not coming through. Is there any information available when this backlog will be cleared? But at the same time, I'd like to thank for CITB to sort of getting together and helping to train people during the lockdown. That was really good, and appreciate that you organized the online tests available straight away. Yeah, it's just that we have a bit of backlog with cards. That's a bit of inconvenience at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Victoria. If you, again, like Karen, want to send me your contact details, I'm very happy to get one of the team to follow it up. There have been some delays because some of the processing teams have been on furlough and those kinds of things, but that's just an explanation rather than an excuse. So if you have backlogs, we'll do what we can to chivvy the card managers along to unblock that. So if you do want to send me your contact details, please do, and we'll follow it up.
And thank you, no problem. Thank you very much. But as I said, thank you for organizing yourselves pretty quickly, you know, and helping us moving, yes, because we didn't stop through the lockdown, and yeah, such a great response was really appreciated. Thanks.
Okay, well done. Thanks for the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. I think it's been a really inspirational morning listening to Nick and Paul in terms of how the CITB can help support the construction sector, and also from Paul's perspective in terms of how they're really reaching out to businesses so you can inspire the next generation, and because that's what we need more youngsters, young people to be inspired to work in the industry. So it's making sure that, you know, when they leave college, it's not only 25% that actually go into work. We can try and make it a higher percentage, whether that's 50 or 75%, that actually stay in that industry that they've actually already trained for and completed, whether it's their A-levels or T-levels or whatever qualifications, higher education qualifications as well. So it is trying to inspire young people to work with local providers. So please do make sure you reach out to both CITB and to Love Local Jobs. And I'd like to thank our sponsors again, Creston Reeves, for sponsoring today's event. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Well done. Thanks.